It's beginning to look a lot like Krampus.
Saint Nicholas is not coming this year. Instead, a much darker, ancient spirit.
Those are hooves. Elk or a goat?
What kind of goat walks on its hind legs?
His name is Krampus.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we are going to be revisiting a film that I haven't watched in quite some time now, and that is Krampus. So this is Michael Dougherty's follow-up to his first film, Trick or Treat, which ended up going on to become, the cult classic as it is today. He followed it up with a Christmas horror film, which was pretty cool. I remember seeing this movie when it originally came out in theaters, and I had realized this year that I was like, you know what? I actually haven't gone back to go watch this movie. And I remember enjoying it when I saw it in theaters. It wasn't as good as Trick or Treat, but I remember I liked it. So I definitely wanted to see if it had held up since the last time I had seen it, which has been several years ago. So for those who haven't seen the movie, after our main character, his dysfunctional family causes him to lose his Christmas spirit, he unknowingly unleashes Krampus, and basically the rest of the film, Krampus and his minions are trying to, they're attacking the neighborhood, going after him and his family as well, and he has to band together with this dysfunctional family to fight back before it's too late. So that's the basic idea of the film Krampus. Like I said, so it's been a while since I've seen this. There will be maybe some slight spoilers since, this movie has been out for a while. So that is your warning before we go ahead and talk about the film. So I really love the opening of Krampus because it opens up by playing It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. And it's so funny, and it really does a good job of setting up the tone of this film because, basically you're in this retail store that I think kind of looks like a Home Depot or something, like that. But there's toys and stuff, so I'm not really sure. But basically, you have, the doors opening up. It almost looks like a Black Friday, but it's definitely closer to Christmastime. And you have these people, stampeding in and running over the employees. You have people getting pulled off of, ladders and people fighting with each other. And it's just perfect because, you have this nice Christmas song in the background while all this chaos is kind of unraveling, behind them. And I think that just does a really good job of setting up the rest of the tone of what this film is going to be like, because it's definitely not a straight up horror movie. It's not something that I was never really scared at any parts of the film. There was maybe one or two parts that were slightly creepy, but for the most part, it's a horror comedy. So it's just something that's kind of really fun, and I think they did a good job of establishing that right from the beginning. So after the opening, we get introduced to the Engel family, and they're at their house, and they're going to be having some of the rest of their family come over. And as we start seeing some of the cousins and stuff like that, they're coming over to the house. You can see this family is pretty dysfunctional. You have pretty solid cast, Toni Collette. She plays the wife in the movie of the main family, and when the cousins come over, they're critiquing her cooking and stuff like that, and you can just see it on her face. She's just I want these people to leave immediately. It's you don't do that coming into someone's house. So you can just see right away. It's just yeah, man, these people just don't want to be around each other, and they have to be there for a couple days, which is pretty crazy. And then you have Howard. He starts picking on Tom, and then Howard's kids, they start picking on Max, which Max is the main kid in the film, and he's the one who accidentally ends up unleashing Krampus because while they're at the table, the two, it's two cousins or whatever, they start picking on him, and they pull out a letter from Santa Claus and, reading it to the rest of the family, and how, he just really wants things to kind of be the way they used to be, and, things have changed, and he just, that's all he wants from Santa. And, after they read that, he gets really upset, tells them, that he hates all of them, and he goes up, ends up ripping up his letter eventually and throwing it out the window, and that's kind of what sets forth the events of Krampus coming down and, attacking this neighborhood and their house. So pretty much, from this point, shit starts to really hit the fan. First we have Max's sister. She decides to, leave the house. It started snowing pretty heavily, and she hasn't heard anything from like her boyfriend, so she wants to go check on him because he's only like a block or two like away. So she's like, oh, I'm just gonna go like walk over there and I'll be back in a couple hours. So that's when things kind of kick off. We see her go outside in the storm, and as she's walking, it's like, it's coming down pretty hard. It's like, I don't know if I would have, even if her boyfriend's only a couple blocks away, it's like, probably wouldn't have let my daughter go out in this like crazy like snowstorm that we're having outside. And it starts getting dark, and then that's when we get our first glimpse of Krampus. You know, you see him on one of the rooftops, and then she starts running, and he starts like chasing after her. And that, that was pretty cool, kind of to get in to see him from afar away. And then eventually, we as the audience, we see that she like hides under this truck to get away from Krampus. And then you see this little like Jack-in-the-Box ends up like getting her or whatever. And that's the last that we see of the daughter. So, she's been gone for a while. And basically from there, you have, the two fathers. They're like, hey, we should really go check on her. It's been a little while. They go out into the storm, and when they go out there, basically all the streets and stuff are empty. They find that the boyfriend's house is empty. There's like a gingerbread stuck to the refrigerator with like a knife through them, and like cracks in the chimney and all this like crazy stuff. So they end up getting attacked by this like creature that's in the snow that kind of reminds me of almost like like Tremors a little bit. So it starts going after them, and they barely escape from that, and then they end up going back to the house, and they're like, okay, we have to stay here, board up the windows and everything. There's crazy shit going on outside. We have to try and figure this out, which is totally understandable. One of the things that I do really like about Krampus is that the movie starts off, and this family, you can tell they're really dysfunctional. They're yelling at each other, picking on each other, and all these different things. And you can just tell they're getting on each other's nerves. But as the movie, goes on, I feel like almost all of the characters, they all get at least like, even if it's a really small moment, they get a chance to kind of redeem themselves a little bit. So I thought that was really cool. By no means are they like perfect characters, but I thought that was like a nice little touch, rather than just making them like characters that were like, okay, I hate basically all of you. They all have like little redeeming qualities here and there. So that, that was cool in my opinion. You also, from early on in the film, you have the character of the grandmother, and you can tell almost from like right away when we like first see her that she knows there's something weird going on. And eventually we end up hearing that she has a backstory with kind of Krampus, where she almost had the same thing happen to her. What Max did is her family was like fighting, and she was upset, and her Christmas spirit was gone, and Krampus ended up visiting her. And it's really cool how they do it, because they have this like stop motion like animation type of style going on there, and I thought that was really, really cool. I loved that that whole scene, that sequence right there. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the film, honestly. But I just really liked the grandmother's like backstory, and eventually later on in the film she ends up sacrificing herself to let the family go, while Krampus ends up, visiting her after his like elves and stuff had picked off some of the other pieces of the family. So I thought the whole backstory with like the grandmother and Krampus and stuff like that was a really cool aspect of the film. And speaking of the elves, I mentioned them like briefly. I love the monster designs in this film. They're all, minus the gingerbread men, they're all practical effects. I'm pretty sure they're all practical effects, which is really cool. When it comes to horror, I always prefer practical, usually over CGI. Although the gingerbread men were kind of funny, they were obviously CGI, but I thought they were pretty funny. But like the elves, I actually have a really cool mask that I have from one of them that I got years ago when the film like came out from Trick or Treat Studios. That's awesome. So I love their designs. The design of Krampus, like I thought he looked really cool and menacing. So yeah, like the creature effects and all that stuff, I thought that was definitely top notch and by far one of my favorite parts of the film. I also really like just, the atmosphere of this film. Like you get the feeling, like you can tell, it's Christmas time, like I said, right from the beginning of the movie. And then throughout the rest of the movie, they do a really good job of making it feel like really chilly and cold. Like you're like, yep, I definitely feel, you know, what these characters are going through with this snowstorm. And at one point you see these like different snowmen and stuff like outside, like watching the house. So I think they did, you know, Michael Dougherty and his rest of his crew did a really good job of bringing that chilly atmosphere to this movie. So yeah, overall, you know, like I said, it's a horror comedy. It's not something that really scared me. I would say the only moments that really kind of creeped me out was at one point where you had the two like cousins and they get eaten by the Jack-in-the-Box like monster, and at one point it shows him in like the attic because the parents are trying to, you know, get them back. And you see like the Jack-in-the-Box, it's like, you know, it's huge because it has these kids inside of him. And he looks pretty creepy. He's probably, I would say those, like the Jack-in-the-Box, the teddy bear, and the little angel thing, those are probably the creepiest like monsters out of everything in my opinion. So I would say that's probably the creepiest part of the film, but the rest of it definitely is more of kind of that fun horror comedy blend, and I think they did a really good job actually blending those elements. Sometimes, you know, that doesn't always work, but I think with Krampus they actually did a good job. You know, pretty solid performances from everyone, you know, around. And you know, it actually at points I think it actually reminds me quite a bit of Gremlins, which, if you can remind me of Gremlins, you're definitely doing a good job, because I love that film, and we'll probably talk about that later this month or December. But yeah, point is, you know, with Krampus, it's a movie I haven't seen since it came out. Wanted to revisit it, and honestly, guys, I think it really holds up. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and I'm gonna have to make a point to you know, to make sure to watch this, you know, every single year, kind of as a tradition, because it was a lot of fun. I don't know why I just haven't gone back and watched it, but I'm glad I finally did. And if you guys haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you checking it out. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. So if you guys have seen Krampus, you know, let me know what you think down below in the comments. If you haven't, you know, are you going to check it out? And what is your favorite horror, you know, Christmas themed movie, you know, of all time? Let me know down below in the comments as well. So, and if you guys are new to the channel, please, you know, hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it, just so that way you get notifications for all my new videos. Also, please make sure to hit that like button, as that really helps the channel, the video specifically, with, you know, the YouTube algorithms, and where I'm a smaller channel. I appreciate, you know, any of the help, you know, I can get. So thank you guys very much in advance. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.